All right. Hello. Welcome back to the IceMac MMA podcast. We don't have an official, we don't do anything typical, like a hey, how you doing? We don't really have an intro, but what we will start doing now is letting you know that we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we are on Apple Podcasts. Make sure however you're viewing this, that you know that there are multiple other options. Alex, I don't want to hammer it to them too much because if they found us, they found us. One way works. But we've I'm not real sure what we watched this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm gonna be honest. I woke up Sunday morning refusing to believe that it was real. You know? Like it's so impossible to fathom that we have Sean Strickland as a UFC champion. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't compute in my head. I just can't. Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me tell you, Chet Hanks must become a UFC sponsor because it has been a white boy summer for UFC. Sean Strickland, Sean O'Malley, Colby, they look like they might be booking that for 96. That was the last I saw that they're gonna book Colby Leon in 3 months.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
December,
exciting.
right?
That's November, right?
No, 295 is November.
Okay, so then
That's
yeah.
John and Stipe. Weren't they talking about, well, okay, I mean, there's a very small chance this actually happens, but wasn't the McGregor and Chandler fight supposed to be the December pay-per-view?
Yeah, it was, but that ain't happening.
I don't think so.
Dude,
It's all
Connor
smoke, man.
Connor just dropped a new proper 12 line. It's going to take him at least 3 years before we see him back in the cage.
Did you see him on Twitter saying he wants to definitively fight at 185 now?
Dude, you don't want to fight at all. Stop pretending. It's not worth. I am. It's been a while since we've Mookie. Jesus, sorry, my cat's in here. But it's been a while since we've gotten on our soapbox about Connor. I was getting a mental health refresh. I was enjoying myself. But we are unfortunately going to have to bring him back up at some point. I knew that was going to be the case. He's not going to fight at 185. He's not going to fight anywhere, man. He'll go box Jake Paul, and then we'll never hear from him again.
In the same weekend, he called out Volkanovski for UFC 300 and then said he's going to fight at 185. I mean, that dude is off the white, you
Dude,
know?
it really just depends on what cycle he's on, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got plenty of stuff that'll make him slim down, just the same way it made him balloon out while he
Yeah.
was recovering from a leg thing. Don't know why you need roids for that. But yeah, he's not if he fights within the next 6 months, I will be like, I might have to quit this podcast. If he fights within the next 6 months, there's going to be a lot of like, you're going to have a lot of ammo towards me. The same way, like with the Sean O'Malley Aljo thing. Like, this is the hill I'm willing to die on.
I
And
think I'm with you on that though. Like maybe I don't know. I think that he might fight again, but I am doubtful that it'll be anytime soon.
no, he's got a better chance of going, like I said, to the YouTube boxing scene than he does to actually being in an octagon, just
Yeah.
because he doesn't care. It's about who writes the biggest check. That's it.
I
But
mean, the guy is making money doing things other than fighting. So,
yeah,
he's probably, I mean, now these days he's probably getting the Twitter dollars on engagement just by tweeting, "Oh, I will fight at 185, this and that."
dude, Twitter dollars, whiskey. He's got more stuff going on, I would imagine. Get off. I might have to edit out the Mookie cut or make just the podcast the Mookie cut of me making sure that she's not terrorizing the whole house. But no, he's a great businessman. He knows how to sell. That doesn't mean he needs to put on the gloves, nor do I think he has any intention of putting on the gloves again.
Yeah. Well, there you guys have it for our it's almost is a weekly Conor McGregor
And we got away from it for half a second because tough
Ash
finish.
Fest. Yeah.
Literally tough finish. I was like, we're done with it.
We're done talking about him.
I don't have to worry about it no more. The sky was brighter. And everything just felt so much better. And now we're back. We're just back.
That is listen, whether you like him or hate him, that is just the aura of Conor McGregor though. Like you have to talk about him. It doesn't matter what
Dude,
else is going on in MMA. It doesn't matter that Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya
we
and
wrote
when no
zero
one thought he would.
we wrote zero news notes. We were going to open this podcast with a quick plug and being like, let's talk about what we watched. Somehow we got to Connor. And yes, this is she is sitting right here because I can keep her still, but who cares? Somehow or another, we rerouted to Conor McGregor. And that's just like you said, that's his power. That's his aura.
Yeah. But we were going to talk a little bit about something that did happen at UFC 293. That wasn't the title fight. We had Aljamain Sterling begging and pleading Sean O'Malley. That was super cringe. I was not a huge fan of that. But
so I will
give him that it's was super funny.
Say I thought Aljo's attempt to do it was kind of funny because just the phone and I know they're not going to give many mic
Bro,
times.
what are you, like a 17-year-old girl at a Jonas Brothers concert?
But I think that's what he was going for. I think that was fairly aware. I don't think he was like, oh, this will give me a title shot. I think he knew that was funny. But did you see Cheeto and Marab get involved?
Yeah, which
Cheeto, what the picture of the soldiers and then the clown in the middle.
Yeah,
that's all I could think of.
Yeah, it's true though, and the thing is, Sean is 100% enabling him on this too, because he keeps calling him out, and that is so upsetting because he doesn't deserve it. The crazy thing is wait, nowhere in this conversation is Corey Sandhagen. The guy has not been mentioned once, and that is a complete travesty.
Dude, Sandhagen does not care. And that's the thing. He just
beat Sheen O'Mara.
Yeah, he's just the happiest guy. He's just cool. So Cheeto should not be in the title, right? We've talked about this for fairly at length. But I do love the fact that you have 4 different guys, one of which is the champion, so you can call it 3, all actively being like, my turn, my turn, my turn, because it makes the division feel valuable. At bare minimum, the goofy little bullshit phone call, or not phone call, but the little Snapchat text or writing it or whatever is making the division seem desirable.
It always has been, though. The bantamweights have always been one of the most consistently exciting divisions in the UFC, I would say.
Yeah, but that low weight is such a hard barrier for entry for new fans, because all you think about whenever you think about fighting is you want to see big dudes knocking each other out. So to have entertainment like we're getting from Sean and Aljo to a significantly lesser extent, Cheeto, Marab, which Marab honestly came out looking the saddest from this whole thing because he wait your turn or whatever. It's like, man, you should have just taken your title fight, but whatever. I don't know. I did genuinely enjoy what came out of that, even if maybe the optics weren't the coolest looking thing ever by Aljamain Sterling.
The only thing I enjoyed was Sean's initial response to Aljo. I thought that was pretty funny.
No.
The smile and the no was that made me giggle a little bit. That was funny. But
Sean knows how to meme, but we cannot spend any more time not talking about the main event. I'm sorry to cut you off on any future thoughts that you had, but we have to speak on it because it is fictional. It is not a real thing that happened.
Literally, I think the first thing I texted you after the decision was we're living in a simulation.
Yeah.
There's no explanation for Sean Strickland to be the UFC champion, but he also just pieced up Izzy for 25 minutes.
I'm looking for
it blew my mind. The guy was 2-2 in the previous 4 fights before he got the title shot.
And so
and the 2 guys he fought, I don't even know if they were ranked.
They probably. I just love it's nobody, you can't embody the win any better than Sean did himself in the post-fight presser. Now, I don't necessarily love the word choice, as we will, trust me, we will talk about word choices
Oh
here
God.
in just a minute. You just be patient here. But because he was just like, he knew he was a filler fight, and he said Dana and Hunter must be kicking themselves just out of anger because who let me, this idiot, because I'm changing the word,
Yeah.
um, fight for a title. And it's accurate. And now I would do anything to get Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis for a title belt because that is the peak of comedy in mixed martial arts. And for Israel Adesanya to not be factored in the next title fight at all would be hilarious.
While we're talking about kind of the implications surrounding the fight, before we get into the actual fight, because this is like a huge ripple effect now.
Yeah,
What I didn't like was Dana talking about giving Izzy an immediate rematch,
but not giving it to Aljo.
but not giving it, well, not even Aljo, not giving it to Alex Pereira.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was DC who said something like Izzy needs to take some time off and kind of let the division have a little movement, have a little, propel it forward a little bit, I guess. And I agree with that. Like that fight was not at all, it wasn't close and it wasn't inspiring whatsoever from Izzy. That was a snooze fest on his part. So why does he, after he lost he's lost now two of his last four, right?
Well, two of his last three,
His
if you
last
want to
three.
make the odds
Yeah.
look worse.
Yeah. He's lost two of his last three, lost the title twice, got the immediate rematch. And this was a fight that we're just supposed to ho hum move on. Izzy will fight Dricus du Plessis. And watching how it was apparent how little he cared. Like I could tell during the fight, it was like, what are you doing? No sense of urgency. I don't
No.
know.
In the first two rounds, it looked like he felt very confident that he could just do whatever.
Quick fight.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going out there with the same mentality that he had against Yoel Romero. Um, and then by round four, he was like, "Oh, wait a second. I can't just coast to this." But by that point, Sean was backing him down into a corner, blocking virtually everything he threw, and landing clean shots on him. So at that point, I texted you this. He looked scared to me. He looked startled because he looked like he came in and was just like, I thought this was just going to be a punching bag. And did Sean go out there and win the title? Yes and no. Did
Yeah.
it go out
He
there and
walked him down for 25 minutes.
yes, but anybody who comes in there prepared with Izzy's caliber puts can put a step can stop that. So Sean, I'm not trying to take anything away from him at all. He deserved that belt because he did absolutely win that fight and had a strategy that worked out very well. But Izzy should not be fighting for titles if that's how serious he takes them.
The thing was, even when it was apparent, even when you got into the championship round and you knew he was down, I didn't see any sort of change in his game plan. To me, it felt like he was leaning on the same things he was doing that were not working for him in the first three rounds. And that was what was so like frustrating about it, and frustrating to hear that like there's a chance that we see him in there again after that. Like I don't want to see that. Give me the winner of Hamzat and Paulo. Give me Dricus du Plessis.
You don't have to say the winner of Hamzat Paulo.
I know, but listen, after this weekend, I'm gonna cover all my bases on that one. So
Yeah, fair
you
enough.
never know.
As much as we love Paulo, I don't, but
I know.
it's difficult. But yeah, I would say that there's at least two people that should be in front of Izzy after turning out that performance for a belt. And I think two people is on the lighter side. So
Yeah.
because I think,
mean, and Rob Whitaker still exists.
dude, call up Alex.
Yeah. Well, now that Alex and Sean are buddies, I don't know if Alex will fight him.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like hypothetically, do we really think
Yeah.
Alex
If the belt gets taken away from Sean, I think it will.
or will even like
But
you think he loses? Or
I
like
think
think he loses to Drakus?
I think he loses to Dricus. After what Dricus did to Rob Whitaker, I think it, I'm trying to find a way to put this nicely, but like I want to get like you said, Sean does deserve credit, but like that was I feel like that was way more a result of Izzy just like not caring than it was Sean fighting well. Sean Strickland has been in the UFC for long enough where there's not going to be a whole lot of evolution to his game. His defense was fantastic. I want to say that right now. His defense was awesome, but the creativity from Izzy was just not there,
No.
and the X factor that he brings to almost every fight wasn't there. And I think Sean is an extremely beatable fighter, and you bring a guy like Rob Whitaker in there who is a monster. Even though he lost to Dricus, he's a monster. I think Rob wins that fight. And if Dricus beat Rob Whitaker as definitively as he did, like that's kind of hard for me to go against. I think this is a title win and no defense for Sean Strickland.
And probably like unless they give him Izzy again and Izzy does the like just is mentally not there anymore, um, then I could see him having a defense. I'm with you. He probably does lose his next one, but this division has been so upside down for what the past 12 months that Sean Strickland defending his title against Rob Whitaker and coming out as the winner, or not Hamzat. Hamzat would legitimately be like a the walls are coming down kind of moment, but against Alex or against Paolo, if he were to defend his title, that would be like a maybe the fourth most shocking thing from this year's in that weight class.
I mean, fourth most fourth most shocking, I would put it right at number 2 under Sean beating Izzy. Sean
No,
beating any of those guys, I would be more shocked than Dricus beating Rob.
I
I
so
mean,
I would put obviously Sean winning. 2, I'd put the Drekus finish. 3, I'd put Izzy KOing Alex. And then 4 or 5 of the Alex Izzy, and then Sean defending his belt. So probably fourth. But yeah, I still that's pretty far down the list. And this is a guy that was never supposed to be a UFC champion.
yeah, like it's
Also, shout out the Prestige
he,
Worldwide shirt. I just noticed that. That's crazy.
the first word in entertainment, baby.
It's so good. Oh man. But yes, Sean absolutely did the unthinkable. He actually inspired the what we'll end this podcast with which is our top 5 biggest upsets. No draft, no none of that. We'll finish out the pod with that, but we had to at least kind of start it with talking about the pure insanity that just unfolded from that fight.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel like it's set in for me.
No,
Like,
I don't think it will until we see him in the cage again. Kind of like how I keep forgetting Alexa Grasso is that champion.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
no,
Spoiler alert.
before we move on, I will say I think whatever happens in the next 6 months or so at the middleweight division, they're just keeping the belt warm for Hamzat Chimaev.
Probably.
It's his time. If Izzy is fighting like that, it's Hamzat Chimaev's time, and I think he's going to be at the top for a while. So if your favorite fighter gets a shot at the middleweight belt before then, savor it because we're gonna have a long reign
I
on
don't
our
know. You're not talking very confident about oxygenated Drinkus anymore.
hands.
That's a he's proving to be a mythical fighter. But okay, we can advance forth. Tai Tuivasa, Alexander Volkov. Tai, I would like to mention this was a horrible card for me. I went
It
one and
was. Yeah, it wasn't great, but what was I, 2-2?
yeah, no, because you had Volkov, you had
Volkov, Izzy. It's
Tate.
also what the hell? It's Manel Cop. Where has this been my whole life, bro?
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I feel like the commentators were saying Cape too in his previous fights.
Yeah,
When I
well,
heard that, I was like, what?
so I heard it on the broadcast, and then I wiped it from my memory and just said Cape because it's like I don't. He could be Manel Cobb. I guess I'll start trying to, but that's not who I know him. If you were to have
Yeah.
texted me or voice memoed me or something 2 weeks ago and been like Manel Cop, I'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you calling him Manel Cop?" Um, but no, didn't you have Manel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you went 4-0 or 3-1.
Yeah, I did.
I
That
I
is
won't.
right.
Oberg was my only win because
Tough.
we
Oh,
differentiate.
right. You did pick against him. I forgot.
Yeah, because
Against
I went
Cop. Against Cop.
yes. Um,
That was an awesome fight though. But let's talk about the Volkov Tuivasa fight.
yes,
Um,
Ty made me sad.
yeah, and that was just my concern with him. I think it just you got to put him up against the right guys for him to put up good performances. And Volkov not only is a pretty proficient grappler. I don't know if proficient is the best word.
Stable.
He's a capable grappler. That's the right word. Proficient, I feel like, is giving him a little too much credit.
Not to
But
bump you off your stick too much, but Aaron Rodgers just got helped off the field.
I have it on
Yeah,
over here.
sorry. Yeah, Zach Wilson, the MILF Hunter, is back in the game. So said it looked like a leg injury. I'll have to watch it for myself here in a minute. But continue.
Um, wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
first
Um,
game in.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
There goes my Jets to win the division bet.
yeah, yeah. That future ain't looking so bright anymore, is it?
That's no, that's not looking great.
I got Colorado at 4.5 though. Shout out.
Hey, you and me both. You put me on that.
I
You put
did.
me on that line.
I
I'm
did.
feeling I'm feeling fantastic. I told everyone who wanted to listen that Colorado is going on
You
for
were
an
you were my little what are the biblical folks?
disciple.
There you go. You were my little disciple, just running
Yeah,
around from every hilltop.
dude. Yeah. Hey, credit where it's due, man. I was all over that as soon as you said something. I love that.
And that was the only thing that FanDuel had posted. We need to go back to talking about MMA. Tai Tuivasa looked completely out of his element. He'll catch like a late because these heavyweights can catch a giant development as they get older. We have seen it multiple times. If you can just keep your chin intact, you are capable of truly evolving as a heavyweight as you get old. That said, I don't know that Ty is going to be one of those people.
Yeah, it's because he can't grapple, and I don't think his striking is complex enough beyond the swang and bang mentality to really elevate himself into being considered one of the best in the division. And that's not to say, he's not fun. It's not to say he's not good, but there's clearly a cap on his game. And Volkov exposed that. Volkov's also just such a tough matchup for anyone. 6'7", can wrestle, and he's got really good striking technique. That's just tough for anyone.
Dude, he is the definition of an underrated fighter.
Yeah.
Even myself, I took Tai Tuivasa to win this fight. I myself underrated how good Alexander Volkov is. And then when they got back in the octagon and I was watching Volkov do what he does, I was like, man, It's like this guy is good. Like
Yeah.
he's objectively an awesome number 4 or number 5 in a division. Is he going to get love and respect for that? No. Is he going to go into the UFC Hall of Fame? No. But he is carving out an awesome career for himself, just being tough and hard to deal with.
Yeah.
I still had to do a lot more despite Volkov being as good as I let myself forget that he is. Ty still needed to show more and do more in this fight to at least give signs of promise for the future. They just weren't there for me. I mean,
Yeah, just it was clearly exposing the holes in his game. That's what Volkov did. And yeah, I had a feeling that this was going to be a bad matchup for Ty. And as much as I like him, he's pretty one-dimensional. So,
yeah, and that dimension got played out hard in that fight. So this next fight, Manel Kopp, weird weekend for him.
yeah,
Was
got into beef with all of City Kickboxing.
yes, then went on and had probably the best fight on the card.
Yeah, it was fight of the night.
And then proceeded to call people a homophobic slur.
Homophobic slurs that
Yeah.
was previously uttered earlier in the card.
Was that?
I don't know what it was with all that talk.
I don't, dude. Something got unlocked out there that night. Like something was in the air.
It's the Sean Strickland effect.
It must be, dude.
It has to be.
We're gonna get like O'Malley saying the N-word here in a couple weeks just because it's Strickland's his champ, so everybody thinks the world's ending. No matter what it was gross. Not a fan of it. Shouldn't be doing it. Think he apologized, which it's because it's kind of crazy because like we see guys like Mike Perry say way wilder stuff. But like these MMA guys are usually like, who's gonna make me stop? Like,
Yeah.
you're welcome to come over here and tell me to shut up. Manel Kopp at least did show the decency enough to show some kind of remorse, but it was just a weird, wild weekend for Manel Kopp, who it really just a really weird 3 months for him because he keeps getting fights canceled and he keeps getting pushed back, and we didn't know who he'd fight, and then he gets in the octagon beefing with Izzy. If you didn't know about Manel Kopp, you do now.
Yeah. Listen, all the other bullshit aside, like he is a good fighter. I've liked his style for a while, and I think it's going to hold up well against some of the better guys at flyweight. But it does kind of suck just to see your performance get overshadowed by this other stuff, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, if he'd have just left that word out, we would be
excited about him fighting Kai France is what we would be doing.
Yes, and we'd be singing his praises. But now it's just like, oh, like I kind of forgot that he and KKF were squaring off because all I can think about is the word he said.
Yeah.
But, Dana hit a woman on camera and is still in charge. So I doubt anything will happen.
Yeah, not a lot of enabling over at the UFC. I think we're pretty vocal about our issues with the company itself and Dana, and it's just kind of that's an occasion where the underbelly was kind of exposed of like, yeah,
it's
shady, like yeah.
It's just like like Paulo Costa's Twitter. It can be a wild place.
Yes,
but that is not being broadcasted on ESPN and through pay-per-view and as a giant representation of your company.
Yeah.
People think Paulo is funny. I think Paulo's hilarious. But there are definitely moments where it's like
pump the brakes.
Yeah, let's calm it down. Hopefully that is what this moment is for Manel. And he does truly believe, that he is truly sorry and he does want to move forward. And just hopefully that's the path we had with him.
Yeah. But Now let's just finish up with Carlos Ulberg.
Yeah.
I was pretty encouraged by that because he didn't get a knockout. He was forced to go 15 minutes and did it well. I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I got no complaints about that.
No, I liked that he did face a little bit more in terms of looks than we've seen him face prior. He went a little bit deeper into the fight than we're kind of used to seeing from him. Um, I think it all just kind of worked out right where he looks strong, but we also did kind of get to see what he looks like as a fight develops. I think you always need at least one of those with prospects or guys that are kind of climbing the rankings. And we got it. We liked what we saw, and we can move on.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple more fights to predict, 4 in total. This first one, I don't have any really hard feelings on. Tracy Cortez versus Jasmine Jasudavicius.
We're just gonna call it Jasmine from here on out. I
Yes, we
appreciate
are.
you taking a stab at that one. Um,
I think Jasudavicius would be, I don't know. Regardless, I think it's Tracy Cortez. There's only one thing I know for certain. This will probably be a decision.
yeah, I think so too. I like Tracy Cortez. I like her game. She hasn't been in the octagon for a little bit, so I imagine she's probably pretty hungry to go out there and get a win. So yeah, again, not a whole lot to say, but that's one that I'm surprised ended up so far down on the prelims because Cortez is ranked. I'm kind of sick of the disrespect towards not just the women's fights in terms of where they're placed on the card, but the men's flyweights as well.
Yeah,
Sick of the disrespect, bro.
no
Ridiculous.
investment. There's absolutely zero investment in either of those weight classes. Now, granted, I don't think this one will be particularly an exciting fight. But when you have a ranked fighter, you should probably have them on the main card.
Yes. Of a fight night?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Unless,
This is not a deep card by any means.
no.
There's plenty of room on the main card for that fight.
About to say, after the top 3 fights, we kind of were just like, oh well,
Yeah.
maybe something cool will happen. So somebody that it's kind of crazy to think about that I haven't thought about him in a couple months now, even though he was really pushed as like the next big thing. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Terrence Mitchell. This kind of feels like a remember this guy booking to me. You know what I mean? Like it's you remember Raul, like the 18-year-old that we signed? Like he's back. You should come watch this.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is this is one of the fights that we should be putting Raul Rosas in right now because his last fight was against another guy up and coming, and Rodriguez was supposed to fight the guy who beat, or he is supposed to fight rather, the guy who just beat Terrence Mitchell in his UFC debut, Cameron Simon. And I think this is like the first fight Rosas had in the UFC against kind of a can who was on his way out. I think this is, against my better judgment because I was proven dead wrong in Rosas' last fight. But I think the UFC has kind of realized that they need to bring him along a little slower. And this is a start for that.
Yeah, you need to make sure this doesn't turn out to be Edmund Shabazian. That's what you're trying to book against. You're trying to keep him out of Edmund territory. Terrence Mitchell has some good numbers, 8 KO, 6 subs. But from what I saw,
Dude, he's been fighting in like Alaska.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been fighting on the Alaskan regional. And in that Cameron Simon fight, he looked pretty out of his depth. So you would like to assume this is a Raul win. I'm not going to pretend like I love it because I don't know what his mentality is. I don't know how well he could take a loss. He's very young. It's very easy to get in your head and, kind of jump too far forward or get too far back off of kind of things like that. So I'm not going to put this high on the confidence meter by any means, but I do think that he is the more talented fighter in this fight. And ultimately that's what I'm going to pick.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I don't feel great after his last performance, but also like hopefully this was a wake up call to the UFC to not push this guy too hard when he's 18 years old. Probably 19 by now.
Literally
19.
just copy your notes from what you've been doing with Ian Gary or
Yeah.
Patty. Copy the notes you were doing with Patty. Like you have a proven track record. Why are you doing this? I would say Bo Nickel has gotten a better group of talent, like or at least was tried to, like Trayshawn Gore and guys like that. At least guys you know. Um, but yeah, take your time with this. Raul is not going anywhere. You can be patient with this project. This next fight is, I will say, the most nervous I've been for a Rising Stars pick.
I am so fired up for this fight, dude. They did right. You know, the rest of the card kind of sucks, but God, these last two fights are money in the bank. Kevin Holland's fighting Jack Della Maddalena. One of Jackson's Rising Stars picks. And I hate to break it to you, man. I think he's going down in this one. I'm gonna go with Holland here.
I'm going with the youthful optimism there because I do think JDM is going to. I think he's probably going to be outmatched. I'm just fair, honest assessment of where JDM is at currently. I think Kevin Holland is a better fighter than JDM is right now, this very second. But a lot of better fighters have been losing lately. So that's not enough of an argument for me. Yes. I mean, shining example twice within the past year. Um, I I think the element of surprise is going to be JDM's biggest friend in this fight. And I think he has to engage in a firefight with Kevin Holland, which is not a smart idea for anybody. But I think it's probably the best way to victory, as messed up as it is, for JDM. I think just causing a car crash and then seeing if the seatbelt worked. Like, I think that's your best bet here. And I'm going to say that JDM wins it because I really do think he is capable of doing it, even though I don't think he's the more talented fighter.
I do think he is capable of doing it. I like it. I like him a lot. I do. I was extremely discouraged by his last fight and how he kind of got thrown around. And I think if Holland wants to win easy, that's the way he'll do it. Knowing Kevin Holland, though, I don't think that's going to be in the game plan. I think he's going to swing for the fences. And I do have confidence in that. I think he's a tough guy. He's got a good chin, and maybe here or there you mix in a takedown and rack up some control time. But
And that's why I was so that's why I feel so confident in the car crash, is because at least it keeps the fight standing. I think if you can just blitz and just make Kevin Holland not even be able to get into position for a single or a double or any kind of control, that at least keeps you in the range of where you're comfortable. But yes, if Kevin Holland wants to, he can grab one of them legs and make it a short night.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna bank on, is that even if it's not his entire game plan, I'm hopeful that it'll just be mixed in. I'm hopeful that I'll get one or two takedowns, because I don't expect him to. That's just not who he is. He's not the guy to wrestle for 15 minutes.
He could, but he's not going to.
Yeah. That's so. I'm just hoping that he mixes it in somewhere, sees the weakness in JDM's game, and at least exploits it for a little bit. And then you can have fun striking for the other, 10 to 12 minutes of the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, very excited about that fight. Obviously, if you know me, I'm very excited to see Valentina Shevchenko get another crack at the title.
Why is this on a fight night?
It's the Mexican Independence Day, and so they want to have Grasso on it.
Dude, they should have some kind of special thing between a fight night and, well, I guess UFC on ESPN is that, because you don't have to have Plus to watch it. But you should have some kind of premium free UFC card. You know what I mean? Like, do it once every 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And just be like, we've got special attraction fights, but it's free. This is your reason to sign up to the UFC because you can get more fights like this. And then that makes sense to have Tina and Grasso. But as of
Well,
right now, just on the fight night branding, it's kind of dumb to me.
the thing is, we used to have title fights on fight nights. I remember when I think it was Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw at
Yeah.
flyweight. That was a title fight on a fight night. We got to normalize that again. At least, like, obviously not. If you take a big name like Izzy Adesanya, like Alex Volkanovski, like
Sean.
John Jones, Sean O'Malley, yeah, like those fights will always be on a pay-per-view. But you get, a women's bantamweight fight. You get Pantoja and maybe Moreno next. You get, I guess, heavyweight once John Jones is gone. You get maybe like a Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall headlining a fight night. Like I'm intrigued by, or not intrigued. I'm hopeful that we get more fight nights like this where there's a title fight headlining.
I think it would be cool to designate certain weight classes for fight nights.
I don't like that because then it
I
when
mean,
it doesn't matter what weight class. Like if you have a star in a weight class who's the champ, like you're not going to want to put him on a fight night card.
yeah,
I
but could
think
you
it depends
imagine?
on who is popular.
But could you imagine how much investment that could get from possible casuals if it's like fight nights are home of the light heavyweight championship? People are going to buy in on that division, and then in a year or two, you can elevate it to being a pay-per-view or just rotate out or whatever. But I would like to see them be like, listen, this is your hub for this specific weight class. If you want to see the rest of the champions, you can go here. You can pay us, or you can illegally stream it, like a lot of people do. Um, I think that would be a neat way to build up engagement for specific weight classes that need it, like some of the women's weight classes or men's flyweight, like you mentioned. Either way, that's marketing brain. That's not even that really has nothing to do with what we're watching unfold this weekend. It's the safe bet's always Valentina. I'm not going to shock the world here. I'm not going to take Grasso. I'm taking Valentina Shevchenko to win.
Yeah, I think I am nervous. I will say I am nervous about this fight because what was very clear in their first fight was that Valentina was outmatched on the feet. Grasso was pretty clearly the better striker. So that makes me nervous if it stays standing. I understand that Valentina got caught throwing the spinning attack, and that's how Grasso got the submission. But I think far and away Valentina is the better grappler of the two, and I think I'm hopeful that that's in her game plan. I'm hopeful that she gets in the clinch because she's got a Muay Thai background, and that I feel like is going to be where she has the biggest advantage is in close quarters and on the ground. And I think she's smart enough to realize that we'll do that, and I think she'll win that fight as well.
Sorry to break more.
Obviously, I'm picking her.
Yeah, I mean, never in doubt. Sorry to break more news to you. Aaron Rodgers is officially ruled out of that game. His X-rays showed up negative though on his ankle.
It's got to be a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, high ankle sprain or something catastrophic just happened. And
yeah,
he just
well,
tore.
If there's no structural damage, then
no, I'm talking about a ligament. Like I'm talking about something tearing,
like an Achilles.
Yeah, because I mean, you can stand perfectly fine on that.
Yeah,
we've seen Kobe and Klay Thompson shoot free throws on that.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's either, like you said, high ankle sprain or something like that, or something just tore in there. But
high ankle, I feel like is best case scenario on that one.
Yeah, or like turf toe or something.
Turf toe can get a little tricky though.
Trust me, I'm panicking about it with Terry McLaurin, because he started the season with it. But regardless, we have Tina. Not decisively, but it is a sweep for the two of
I'm
us.
less comfortable. I mean, I am always super confident in her. This one I'm nervous for. And that's part of the reason why I'm excited, I think, is because I'm nervous for this fight.
This is probably like a 6 on your confidence meter, and I don't know that I've ever seen you dip below like an 8.5 for her.
Yeah. 6 is a good spot. I mean, yeah, 6 6 is a good spot. I like that.
Yeah. All right. So now the big finale, if you will, inspired by the Sean Strickland win this weekend. Alex and I have both independently come up with our top 5 biggest upset lists, and I assume Izzy versus Sean is on your list.
It is. Is it
Is
on
it?
your?
Yes, of course. Is it number 1 though?
No.
Not number 1
Actually,
for me.
are we gonna get? Well, I assume we're going 5-1, right?
Correct. Yes.
Number 5 for me is Izzy and Sean.
Really?
Yeah, I think I didn't want to get caught up in recency bias. There are a lot of good upsets in the UFC, and maybe it will grow on me. This was a big upset, but it also, like, I don't know. I guess some of it for me is like it wasn't like we didn't have the finish. We didn't have something to put that extra exclamation point on this upset. It was still a very clear win for Sean Strickland, and he pieced him up, and I was stunned. But I have that. I have that as 5. I think the biggest reason is because there is no finish on it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It is higher than 5 for me because it was by odds, by Vegas odds, it was the largest upset in UFC history.
Mm-hmm.
That said, the odds weren't around for a lot of the biggest upsets in UFC history.
Yeah.
Something the odds were absolutely around for marks my number 5 because it didn't happen very long ago. Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. Because of the deep waters that Leon was in, how far behind on the scoring system he was, and then he brought that kick through. It's moments make the upset, and the ups. I mean, I don't know what the live odds were at that point in time, but I would imagine that they were insane. And Leon managing to find that had to be somewhere on my list.
That is, I immediately regret not putting that fight on my list because I remember how I felt after watching that. I bet on Usman, so naturally I was pretty upset with the outcome. But I remember just sitting on my couch for like a good 10 minutes, just staring off into space, like, dude, how did this happen?
Oh, so it didn't make it onto your 5?
No, it didn't.
I will mention it. It took the spot because I was debating on 5. It took the spot of Bisping Rockhold.
Okay.
That would have been my 6. And that was because of the finish.
Yeah.
That
was awesome. That was a really awesome fight.
Yeah. All right. So since you started with 5, I'll go ahead and reveal my 4 first. This one is lower on my list than I'm sure most people would have it, but it's because I didn't experience it. It wasn't, and I only know the story of what happened after. Georges St. Pierre versus Matt Serra.
It's on my list. It's higher than 4.
Okay. So but see, that's one of them that maybe I'm just not being enough of a historian. But knowing that he did end up getting his win back, moving forward, becoming what he became, it doesn't really hit with me because in my mind, that was early GSP before he had to overcome that challenge, and it was not final form GSP to me. So that's kind of what gets stuck in my brain. That said, he should have never been in a position to lose to Matt Serra to begin with how talented we know him. So cracking 4 definitely has an argument to go higher. But that's just kind of where I settled on it, where I found it was comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, GSP was 14-1, I think, in the UFC going into that fight. It was he is what, like, that is what, up and coming Kamaru Usman was. Kamaru Usman at the very beginning of his title reign. Izzy Adesanya at the beginning of his title reign. Alex Volkanovski, where these guys have just ran through everyone they faced beforehand, and just seeing them when they looked unstoppable. Seeing that, I'll save some of it for when I have that fight. But my number 4 is Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey.
That's your 4?
Yeah.
Buddy, you are Okay.
I have a feeling you have that at 1 by that reaction.
No comment.
Um, yeah. So I mean, listen, it was Ronda Rousey, another one who looked unbeatable. Was a huge pioneer for women's MMA. And Holly Holm, but I think a lot of it was I think part of the reason why I have it low is because Holly was also very, very good. And people were just caught up in the hype of Ronda Rousey. Holly Holm was a boxing world champion. Like she was the shit. Holly Holm was all that. And I think it gets a little um hmm, I think it gets a little embellished how because of how many people loved Ronda Rousey and how much of a hype train there was behind her. She was very good, and I'm not taking away anything from her skill. This to me speaks more to Holly Holm was also really, really good too.
Yeah, I don't even want to comment on it because yes, we're going to talk about it again. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of these fights because there's a clear-cut 7 or 8 that are at that mountaintop.
Yeah.
Who's your 3?
Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman.
Okay.
Yeah, this was really debating 1 through 3 was the toughest for me. Silva, the guy had won what 11 title fights in a row, and Chris Weidman just he stopped this freight train, you know. And Silva was even getting, he always did like his little, I guess, taunts in the octagon where he was kind of feeling himself a little bit. Weidman shut that down immediately. And just, yeah, when you see someone that great, who I would say Anderson Silva's title reign is the greatest in UFC history. Statistically, I think it is. And just being able to shut that down, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how good you are. Like being able to stop that is worthy of a top 3 upset in UFC history.
Yeah,
Ending the greatest title reign, I think, in UFC history.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've got that one. I mean, I'll mention this one and then we'll be talking about it right again. My number 3 is Izzy versus Sean.
Okay.
Like we mentioned, the biggest upset in UFC history based on UFC or based on Vegas odds. Sean just looked kind of like a robot, which was not supposed to be the case. This was supposed to be an easy extra gem in Izzy's belt on the way to Dricus. That did not happen. Maybe I am being caught up in the moment. I'm being a prisoner of the moment, and that's perfectly fine. Because the moment right now is that I still don't really believe what I saw. And if a fight can make me have those kinds of like truly like questioning if I believe something that I watched unfold, that means it was a pretty shocking outcome. So number 3 on the biggest upsets of all time feels like a healthy spot for it to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then number 2, Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva. Everything about that fight and the fact that it's still talked about as much as it is today shows how massive of an outcome that was. And Chris Weidman somehow, some way, pulling it off and getting Silva, putting him out, and walking away with that title belt and ending this truly untouchable run. That doesn't happen. That's the Giants beating the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. That's Wisconsin beating undefeated, was it Kansas or Kentucky? In Final Four.
Kentucky.
I always get them mixed up because they're blue, the K-States, and, with Frank the Tank going out there and beating Kentucky as they're undefeated in the Final Four. Like that's what that is. That's truly shocking to see. And number 2 might have even been underselling.
Yeah, and pretty much everything that you just said applies to my number two. A little surprised this one didn't find your list. My number two upset is Juliana Pena beating Amanda Nunes. And the simple fact is Amanda Nunes is the greatest female fighter of all time.
Yes.
She was, and this was when she was at the top. Like, obviously she retired, but she was still at the top of her game. She looked the part in the second Pena fight and in the Aldana fight. She didn't look like she lost a step at all. But she just had an off night, and Juliana Pena had an on night, and I will never get the visual of Pena choking out Amanda Nunes. Like that was one of those things where it was, yeah, you remember exactly where you were
Yes.
when you watched Amanda Nunes lose in that fashion. And I think just because Nunes is the greatest female fighter of all time at the height of her power, and it ending that quickly to someone as unimpressive as Juliana Pena, I think is worthy of the number two spot.
The only reason it didn't crack my list, and it was absolutely something I considered putting on here, was because of how sloppy, just how, I mean, she just, good God, Nunes. I don't know what just happened in my brain. She looked like a shell of herself in that fight. And that in my head, like just trying to remove the Vegas odds, which I know I was hammering with the Izzy and Sean stuff. But if you do try to just subtract it all down to the fight, like you said, it was a very off night for her. She came back and I mean mopped the floor with Pena. So something about that was like it never ever felt in question to me that she would not get her title back. It was like oh, this next fight, it's over. Yeah. That kind of takes the element of upset out for me. It's like, it's like calling game 2 of the NBA finals an upset, whenever it's like, well, we know what's going to happen later. We know what's going to happen in this next match. That's kind of how that process for me. Like it didn't hit the truly like alarm bells because we knew that there was really no problem at hand. It was just a bad night that was going to get corrected.
Yeah. It just, to me, it was just the shock factor of believing that Amanda Nunes is like as a human,
It's the second most shocking finish on this list. But the actual outcome of the fight didn't really push it to where my list was. That's kind of how it worked for me. The visual didn't really stick with me as much.
Yeah. Well, if you could probably put 2 and 2 together.
Yes.
At what each of our number ones are, because we've kind of hinted at it. My number one, I'll start, is GSP versus Matt Serra, because GSP is, to me, the second greatest MMA fighter of all time, behind John Jones. So really just for someone of that caliber to, I think it was his first title opportunity as well. Like this was supposed to be, before I keep talking, I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure that this was his first title opportunity. And for someone to be, this was supposed to be GSP's coronation.
Right. He was supposed to become the king of the company and be on every promotional billboard they had and be the guy on the Wheaties box. Like he was supposed to become Mr. UFC, after the wave of Tito and Chuck and all those guys had passed.
That's okay. I was incorrect.
Okay.
He won. This was actually his third title fight. He lost to Matt Hughes initially, beat Matt Hughes again to win the title back, and then immediately lost to Matt Serra.
Yes.
So he slayed the first dragon. He beat the guy who handed him his first loss in his career.
Yes.
Slayed the Matt Hughes dragon. And when you had won 13 of your 14 UFC fights, you're expecting like, all right, the monkey's off his back. Now comes the the long title reign, and for all of those expectations to be snatched away that quickly, like we've never seen that happen. We didn't see a guy. We've never seen a guy win the title, immediately lose it, and then come back and go on the run that GSP did. So I think part of this for me is just because of what he did after that. But I can't think of a guy who was as dominant of a champion having a start to his title reign like that, where it looked like the world was ending, you know?
Yeah, no, and I definitely get it. That's one of those things that if I were a fan in that moment, it would probably be my number one. And I know you aren't a fan at that moment yet, but you also were significantly closer to that than I was. You got onto the UFC train way before I did. So I think being closer to the epicenter of the madness that was GSP versus Matt Serra, and still having a lot more of the remnants coming to you, really maybe, and it might be number one. I'm not here to argue that it's not. It's just not my number.
Yeah.
But whenever I did join, it wasn't very far removed from Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey. And I remember not even being a UFC fan yet, just watching, normal ESPN programming. And they were talking about Ronda Rousey being able to beat up some of the men fighters. And
Yep.
her legacy of being the person that the UFC made women's divisions for, and being their champion and their real breadwinner, outside of Conor McGregor. Like, she was number 2 at minimum. And then you put Holly Holm in there, who was absolutely good at that point in time. But Ronda's talking all this smack about being able to stand with her and knowing that she'd dominate her in the ground, and just having this confidence and this star power oozing out of her. And then Holly wins. And the whole world just loses it. I mean, they still talk about it. It is still pretty commonly brought up. So I just think if you've got that kind of sticking power, you were that kind of superstar, and the fall that it created after. I mean, it was a perfect storm of tearing somebody's legacy down.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because no one mentions Ronda Rousey now as a top 3, or maybe top 3, but it's clear that it's Nunes. I think at this stage, Chris Cyborg or Valentina has surpassed Rousey as the greatest, or as one of the greatest women's MMA fighters. Yeah. So yeah, you make a good point there. You make a good point.
Yeah, I just, because a lot of these fights created chaos for a fight, or a month or a year. This created chaos for her whole career. She never stuck the landing after that.
Yeah.
So that, I think, if an upset is big enough to where it destroys how you're perceived in your career as always a pioneer, but as once a pillar of the UFC's history, I think that qualifies you to be at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think for me it was more about it was less about the hype and more about the ability of the fighters. I think that's where we were a little different, was like, and neither one is right or wrong.
Right.
Just how I see it is like, because no woman after Ronda Rousey had the same hype that she did. No one has, and I don't know if anyone ever will.
No, if people like Aaron Blanchfield aren't getting it currently, then good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know how many more weight divisions they're going to introduce for women, especially on the back of one specific fighter, unless Kayla Harrison comes over. And even then, that's kind of sullied because she's lost.
Yeah. Well, she could. Yeah. I don't know. I think the next division we see if we are retiring women's featherweight, I'd like to see women's atom weight. I'd like to see 105 because I think that could bring a lot of good competition as well.
Yeah, but they put the title fight on the prelims. Getting made that low of a weight class?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would mistreat that thing so bad. But yeah, so just a quick recap, my list: number 5, Leon Marty; number 4, GSP Matt Serra; number 3, Izzy versus Strickland; number 2, Wyden versus Silva; number 1, Holm versus Rousey.
Yeah, I was number 5, Strickland Adesanya; number 4, Holly Ronda; number 3 was Weidman Silva; 2, Pena Nunes; and 1 was GSP Serra. You know, it had some similarities. Also a couple differences, couple thrown in there that I was not expecting Leon and Kamaru, but I think that was an excellent pick.
Yeah, that was one that like last night whenever I was doing my notes, I was pretty set on Rockhold Bisping, and then I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, there's got to be something I'm missing, and then it hit me, and it hit me like a kick to the face, if you will.
Like a headshot.
Yes, headshot dead, and then it had to be on the list. But Alex, tell them where they can listen to us for the foreseeable future.
So just look on YouTube. It's the Ice Mac MMA podcast. Should pop right up for you. We are on Apple and Spotify as well if you don't want to watch us talk, which sometimes I can understand.
What? You don't want to try to figure out that my flag behind me is ESPN just backwards because of the camera angle?
Yeah. So YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Come find us. Our Twitters.
Yes.
Mine is Alex Eisman, KGWN. It's Jackson TM.
Yes.
Please tweet at us.
Proud you knew that.
Oh, I mean, well, dude, we send each other DMs all day. I haven't.
We send a lot of Twitter DMs. Oh, man. But all right, Alex, you got anything else?
No, I'm all good. We'll see you next week.
See ya.